Lannie. Today I'm going to be talking about not books. I have reached that part of American history in school that I'm learning about the only interesting part of history, which is Hamilton-related history. I learned too much stuff, so I'm just gonna like barf it out on you guys. But here are just some things that happened during the Hamilton musical that I found to be fairly interesting, especially about the characters. They're politicians. They're the definition of gray area. George Washington, every single textbook paints him out to be the super great good guy because he's the founding father of founding fathers. He's the first president. Of course there's nothing bad about him. Of course he crossed the Delaware River on Christmas Eve even though he had a truce saying, oh yeah, we're not gonna fight on Christmas, and he just totally ignored that and then just killed British troops in their sleep. Whatever. No textbook mentions that. They just have this super cool painting. John Adams was the second president of the USA. By the time he became president, he was short, old, and not very attractive, and that made him unlikable. Honestly, he was just handed a bad hand in presidency because he had to follow George Washington. How do you follow George Washington? I could talk about some interesting things that John Adams did, but I can't really remember right now. So the first person that we're going to talk about is Tommy J. No! Tommy J, third president of the USA, and pretty much the total opposite of Hamilton. Like, it's kind of funny how opposite Hamilton and Jefferson were. You pretty much know how Tommy J was all like founding the mother freaking Democratic Republicans, and Hamilton was with the Federalists. I see a lot of things online saying Tommy J was like a totally awful person. He had slaves and he was totally mean to Hamilton and his ideas were dumb. No, that wasn't the case, guys. He was a president for a reason. He was actually very intelligent, and we had to keep in mind the cultural context of when he was alive. Having slaves was pretty much normal, especially since he was from Virginia, which was like the leader of the South. So slaves. Of course, that's like totally wrong now, but a lot of the historical people, famous people, had slaves. Tommy J, apparently he was a very tall and attractive redhead. Who knew? Because like all his paintings are like old and like lit. He was super tall. John Adams was like super short, so like the height difference was like, Jefferson was actually pretty cool, even though Hamilton does not make him out to be. During Jefferson's presidency, he had this new thing where he would literally allow guests in his home. He would be totally chill there, but he was a really weak public speaker, and he was very aware of that fact. So it was just like, imagine like adorable, super tall Thomas Jefferson, and then be like, I can't, yeah. So that is why I would be a very good, president. Thank you. But of course he was super good at writing. In fact, he wrote the Declaration of Independence. I mean, everyone knows that. What I found super interesting was though Declaration of Independence was on his tombstone, the fact that he was president of the United States is not, because Jefferson actually hated his second term of presidency, and at the very end, he was just like upset and done and so glad he was like finished with all of it. Like, wow, I was president of the United States, but no biggie or anything. What I also found was cute was Jefferson, Adams, and Washington didn't want America to be this totally like war country. Like, they wanted a small military, and we wanted America to be the peaceful example for the rest of the world and be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna not go to Europe. We're gonna stay in our lane. You can just stay over there with your problems. He had these little tiny boats called mosquito boats that were awful at the time because they were blown away by the wind. One time, actually, one of the mosquito boats like flew like 10 miles inland, and that was that. But then what I found to be super hilarious was in 1814, Great Britain burned Washington, D.C. down to the ground. And honestly, people don't mention this, but they only burned DC down because America burned down parts of Canada when we tried to, obtain Canada, but whatever. The books in the National Library today are actually the books that Jefferson had donated from his private library at the Monticello, because the National Library burned, and books burned in it. And so the library in Monticello right now was actually Jefferson's second private library. What do you know? Jefferson was a book nerd. But what I found hilarious was in 2014, Great Britain released this tweet pretty much celebrating the 200th anniversary of the White House burning down, and they made a little cake. And you know what happened? America, as always, got too butthurt and pretty much blew up. I don't remember this happening. My teacher just mentioned it and I thought it was hilarious. But we pretty much got super mad, and to a point where Great Britain had to send us a letter saying, I'm sorry, I thought 200 years was enough time, but we can see that it's still apparently a sore subject. We apologize for you not being able to take a joke. Also, apparently, the room where it happens was based off the Compromise of 1790. Speaking about the Compromise of 1790, let's talk about Aaron Burr. You know how he lost the presidency, but what you don't know was after the presidency, he went pretty much ballistic. He went to the West to pretty much make the West separate from America and have it be its own nation, and they teamed up with Spain to get Mexico and Florida to attack America. That's kind of crazy. Like, what the heck, Aaron Burr? You were running for president one day, and then literally the next you were like committing treason. I thought that was funny, but then it only gets worse because it's American history. He was not found guilty, so he was able to run away to Europe, where he then joined Napoleon. You know, famous French person Napoleon, the one that's short but actually kind of tall because they had a different measuring system. That Napoleon. He joined Napoleon and became a kind of big figure with Napoleon's little party thing going on. And he attempted to get France and Britain to go against America and fight against America. And Napoleon was all like, yeah, let's do that. But then Napoleon started losing and they were like, oh, dang. And John Adams had nowhere else to go. Now this part is kind of rusty. I don't remember it much. Aaron Burr went back to America and ended up staying with a lot of random people. Aaron Burr was in New York. Theodosia was in the South. And he sent a letter to Theodosia saying, hey, visit me. I haven't seen you in like a million years because I've been in France trying to, you know, take over America. And Theodosia was all like, oh yeah, yes, father, I'll go to you. And so she got on a boat and attempted to go to New York. But the thing is, she never got to New York. Something happened to her boat, and she was pretty much never heard from again. Like, I thought that was neat. Like, dun 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 dun. That's the wrong one. Like, dun 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 dun. What happened to Theodosia? I mean, she's probably dead by now, but